We are continuing on with our teacher training at Howard University, March 25th, 2013. Our next presenter is Ann Weathersby, and she will present on India.
Hi, you all. Thank you very much for inviting me. I spent 7 years in India. I went to high school in India. I did some graduate work at Delhi University and the University of Pennsylvania, as my bio states. So I know a lot about India, and I really love India and would love to go back. Anyway, I wanted to give you a brief overview of India. I think that everybody has one of these outlines. Okay. The flag, which you can see on your outline and not so much on the slide, but the flag has three stripes. The saffron at the top, which we might otherwise call orange, represents courage and sacrifice. The white is in the middle, and it represents truth, peace, and unity. And the green at the bottom represents fertility and prosperity. One more element of the flag is the 24-spoked wheel in the middle. You can see that on the slide. And it represents it's the national emblem of the blue spinning wheel, the Ashoka Chakra. And it represents the eternal wheel of Dharma, which is the element that provides stability and harmony to the universe. At the end of each spoke is a little blue half moon. You can see them at the edge there. The flag is supposed to be made out of khadi cloth, which is a homespun material. I happen to have a shirt out of khadi here, but you can see it's very rough hewn, and that's the way the flag is supposed to be made. I'll let you all come over here and see all of my stuff later. Anyway, the Sanskrit word Bharat is the word for India, so you might hear people use the word Bharat for India, but it is, of course, the Republic of India. Just to give you a quick overview, it is the 7th largest country in the world by area, so it's quite a large country. It's about a third the size of the U.S. It's the second most populous country after China, but it's catching up to China fast. And some people say that it might beat China in 2030, and that's because of the, Chinese approach to one child and per family, and India not so much. It's the 10th largest economy by gross domestic product. It has the most populous democracy. It is a parliamentary government with a prime minister, a president, a Rajya Sabha, which is the equivalent to the House of Lords or the Senate, and the Lok Sabha, which is the lower house or the House of Representatives, if you will. India gained its independence from the United Kingdom, or from Great Britain, in August 15th, 1947, and it now has 28 states and 7 union territories. New Delhi is the capital, and that's where I grew up and spent all of my time, so that's what I know best. It's the largest city, and it has 21+ million people. That's a big city. And when I was there, Mumbai, which used to be called Bombay, was much bigger, and Calcutta was much bigger as well, but they're now ranked 2 and 3. The local currency is the rupee, And when I was there, it was 13 rupees to $1. Now it's 54 rupees to $1. Gee, I think I have some rupees left. I ought to go back. Dollars. Okay, so India is located in South Asia, in the Indian subcontinent. In your slide, in your packet, you'll see a map of India. It's, let me just go there. It's surrounded by Pakistan, and then China over across the top, Nepal over on the right-hand side, Bhutan, Bangladesh, and then Burma way over to the right-hand side. And way down at the bottom, it looks like an eye drop down at the bottom. It's not actually connected, but that's the island of Sri Lanka. So, and you can see it's a subcontinent. It's surrounded by water as well at the bottom. On the left-hand side is the Arabian Sea. At the bottom is the Indian Ocean, and the Bay of Bengal is on the right. Just go back. So I've already said all that. So okay. So we have the Himalayan mountains in the north. We have a big area of desert over here to the, this is the Thar Desert. The Himalayan mountains are way at the top here. We have the Indus, oops, too much pushing. Okay. So we have the Indo-Gangetic Plain where the Ganges River and the Indus River run through this area. The Deccan Plateau, which is all in here, and then tropical beaches all along the bottom. So you can imagine the weather, there's a lot of variation in weather when you're talking about the Himalayan mountains, which are the highest in the world, and then down here at the beach. So, India has a long history that really started as a civilization. Let's start from there. Of course, there were people living there before then, but the Indus Valley Civilization, or the Harappan civilization, started in 33 BC around the Indus River, which is now actually in Pakistan. The Aryans, or the Indo-Europeans, came through the northwest down into India and brought the Vedic period starting around 1500 BC. And the Vedic period is named after the Vedas, and you may have heard of the Vedas. They're the oldest Hindu scriptures. There are 4 Vedas. They're composed in Sanskrit. They weren't written, they were word of mouth for many, many years. And it's the basis for the Hindu religion. And it's also the basis for the caste system, which you may still see vestiges of in India now. The caste system, just to give you an overview, basically there are 4 major castes and then an outcast group. The top part, the top is the Brahmins, who are the priests and teachers. The Kshatriyas, who are the warriors and rulers. Then the Vaishyas come third, and they're the farmers and traders and shopkeepers and that sort of thing. The Shudras are the servants and farmhands. And then below them, and people have called them outcasts, are the Harijans. The Harijan term it means the children of God, and that was coined by Mahatma Gandhi to help elevate the Harijans, or what you may have also heard them called untouchables. The Harijans were the ones who performed the unclean jobs, such as being butchers and tanners and sweepers and people like that. So even though the caste system doesn't officially exist, about 60 years ago they banned the caste system. There are still reminders of the caste system in society pretty much everywhere. Anyway, so going on to the Mauryan Empire, Ashoka the Great was the big name in the Mauryan Empire from 269 BC to 232 BC. He became a Buddhist and helped spread Buddhism around the world. After that, the Gupta Empire was another attempt at unifying the subcontinent. That was in 319 AD when Chandragupta II came in power. And he pretty much had all of North India and part of South India. The Chola Empire was a South India empire, and that was from 9th century AD to 1216. The invaders or invasions from the northwest changed India substantially. The Huns started coming in, the Mamluks who brought in Islam. They were followed by the Mongols, who then became known as the Mughals. They came in starting with 1398 and were in power for a long time. In fact, you may know of one of the best-known Mughals, who was Shah Jahan. He was married to Mumtaz Mahal, and he's the one who made the Taj Mahal for Mumtaz Mahal after she died, so as her tomb. The British period started in the early 1600s when the British East India Company came to India and started setting up shop, so to speak. The company eventually established their capital in Calcutta in 1773, and then ruled India as the company ruled the Indian subcontinent until the British Raj started administering it instead in 1858. So really from the early 1600s until independence, the British had an enormous amount of influence, obviously. Then in 1947, India got its independence, and at the same time, there was partition which split Pakistan from India. And they've never really been very good friends since. Mm-hmm. So, anyway, so during the time that the British government was ruling, from the early 1900s, there was a move to become self-ruling or independent. And of course, the biggest player in that process was Mahatma Gandhi, who I'm sure you know a lot about or have heard about, and his nonviolence movement or civil disobedience. He actually had started his, he was born in Gujarat, which is a western state of India, went to London to become a lawyer, and then went to South Africa, where he started his civil disobedience there. He then came back in 1915 to India to promote his programs and to work on self-rule in India, and was a big player in the whole process. Since independence, in 1950, India began to recognize the disadvantaged groups that I was talking about, the Harijans, as scheduled castes and tribes. India has a lot of indigenous populations that are considered tribes. Often a lot of tribes in Assam and some of the other states where they're often in the hills. So those tribes are also considered scheduled tribes and are given some advantage as a result. Then they launched some rather significant economic reforms in 1991. And then over the past few years, they've been making great strides in engineering and information technology. And in fact, they have a moon program, and they sent their first moonshot in 2008. It was a controlled crash landing, but it still got to the moon. And it was supposed to crash. So anyway, that was 2008. So they have made great strides in the technological engineering area, and in fact, they have a very fast-growing middle class as a result of these strides in the right direction. Okay, so one more note on history. 4 of the world's religions started in India: Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and Sikhism. But other religions influenced India's development a lot, including Zoroastrians, who are Parsis. In India, they're called Parsis. Christianity, and Islam. And right now, there are about 80% of the population is Hindu, and then about 13% is are Muslims, and then the other percent are something in between, some of these other things. Language, this is one of my favorite topics. Standard Hindi is the official language, but because there was so much influence, English influence for so many years, and because there are 14 other official languages, because there are so many different languages in India, they needed kind of a unifying language, which is English, so that's a secondary official language. There are also 29 languages, some of them are among the 14, where there are more than 1 million speakers. And somebody once told me there are over 800 different dialects in India. So it's hard to communicate sometimes. Sanskrit is the base for Hindi in North India. It's an Indo-Aryan language. Dravidian is the base for the southern languages. And Hindi is written in what's called Devanagari script, which is a Brahmi script. And Urdu, which is has the 6th most biggest number of speakers, uses the Arabic script. As I mentioned, I grew up in New Delhi, where the language spoken there was known as Hindustani, because it was a combination of Hindi and Urdu. So there was a lot of Arabic-influenced words in the Hindi that I was speaking. So here I just wanted to show you, this is Hindustani written in Hindi at the top, and that goes from left to right. And it's Hindustani in Urdu at the bottom, and it goes from right to left. Anyway, as I said, language is one of my favorite topics, and there are lots of English, Indian words in the English language. My favorite one being mugger. And why is mugger an English word from India? Is because mugger is the word for crocodile. Crocodile purses were stolen by people who became known as muggers. So That's where mugger comes from. There's also some very familiar other words that might sound a little more Indian: bungalow, bangle, even candy is from Sanskrit.
Does it mean the same thing?
Yeah, sweet, sugary, sweet. Coolie, cummerbund, pajamas, shampoo, and of course yoga. And I could go on and on with a very long list of words. You'd be surprised. And here are a few Hindi expressions. Namaste is the word that's used for hello in Dubai. And typically you bring your palms together and you say namaste like this. Some people say namaskar. It means the same thing, but in any case, this is the formal greeting. Namaste. Aap kaise hain means how are you? Main theek hoon, dhanyavad, or tum means I'm fine, thank you, and you.
Okay.
Aapka naam kya hai means what is your name? And mera naam Ann hai, because guess what? That means my name is Ann. And then a great word is acha. That means great or good. Kind of with enthusiasm, especially if you say acha with an exclamation point.
Right. Yeah.
Positive reinforcement.
Yes. Yes. Acha. Acha. And I'll wait till the question.
Of course, much of India is still rural or forested, or in fact, jungle is an Indian word. It comes from India. Anyway, so there's lots of jungle in India, and of course there are lots of indigenous animals. Indian elephant, king cobra. Of course, you've all heard of the charming. Snake charming and that sort of thing. They use cobras for that. Typically, the people who do the snake charming, for tourists, defang the cobras, so there's
That's
less
helpful.
risk because they're very, very dangerous.
That's helpful.
And in fact, there are lots of snakes in India. When my father said I was going to go to India, I said, no, not going. Too many snakes. I had to go anyway. I didn't have a choice. But there's even a festival called Nag Panchami, which is snake festival. So you bring out all your snakes and you walk around and kind of like a dog festival, but with snakes. And the mongoose is there to fight this, fight the cobra, to keep the cobra population down. Bengal tiger, of course. I just saw Life of Pi last night, and that's Bengal tiger. Yeah, well, that's a great movie. There's a snow leopard. Water buffalo, which is quite different from our buffalo, as you might imagine. An Indian rhinoceros, crocodile, and I bet you know what that is. That's a mugger, right? Camel, peacock, monkeys everywhere, among many, many other animals. The cuisine, this is also another favorite topic. So the cuisine varies a lot from part of the country, from one part of the country to the next, and it has a lot to do with what's locally available, of course. For instance, in South India they use coconut a lot because guess what? They grow coconuts there. So they also spice their food differently, and in South India it's usually hotter. They put more spices into it. But we use the word curry as kind of a generic term for a dish with spices and some kind of vegetable, chicken, goat, fish, or whatever that you would put on rice, right? I think you all probably had what might be. But in actuality, there's a lot of fine grades of what we call generic curry, and they would be, well, there are lots of different names for that, for various types of curry. But that's a base, especially in northern India. There's a lot of curry, and of course there's tandoori, which is also northern India. Bread, there are a couple of really popular kinds of bread that you might be aware of: naan and chapati. Naan is a little sort of cooked in an indoor oven, I mean a tandoor oven that's kind of a big bowl in charcoals, and then the chapati is cooked on top of the stove. Yeah, flat bread. Dal is a lentil or a bean or a pea, and it kind of comes out, they cook it like a thick soup, and that's also really good on rice. Samosa is a kind of a triangular dough with something really good inside. And rice is used as something to put your curry or your dal on top of, or biryani, which is mixed with vegetables and meats and things like that. And then in South India, they use rice as a flour. So they make something called a dosa, which is kind of like a burrito or something, I guess, meaning it's a flat thing and they stuff stuff into it. It's delicious. Okay, so there are lots of wonderful fruits and nuts there. Mangoes, that happens to be the national fruit of India, and there are, I've lost count at how many varieties of mangoes there are, but a lot of them. And they also have bananas, limes, papaya, coconuts, as I mentioned, cashews, lots of wonderful fruits and vegetables. Dairy products are a really important part of the diet, and we're talking about ghee, which is clarified butter. We're talking about milk, cheese, yogurt, things like that. And chai is the Hindi word for tea. Here, they tend to put a lot of stuff in it, but in India, chai typically is served as tea with milk in it, and you can optionally put sugar and stuff like that, and maybe some herbs or spices. Beef is generally not eaten by Hindus because the cow has a status as a religious symbol, and because a cow is too valuable because it produces all those dairy products. So, so beef is really not eaten by most of the population in India. Vegetarianism, however, is quite spread all over. Lots of vegetarians. Remember I mentioned the Jains earlier as one of the 4 main religions coming out of India. Well, the Jains, not a huge group at this point in India, but they are so strict about their vegetarianism, not wanting to kill anything, that they won't eat root vegetables, because if you eat a root vegetable, you're killing the plant. So, okay. Okay, clothing. I'm wearing not necessarily a typical dress, but it is a textile from India. And of course, women wear, sorry.
It's okay, you're fine.
Maybe I will get up because I have things to show now. Saris are worn by women, and they're 9 feet. Oh, sorry, 9 yards of cloth, and it goes, yeah. And they're beautiful pieces of material, and they're wrapped around this way. They make some pleats. They tuck it in, and then they have one piece that either goes over this shoulder, or goes over this shoulder, or goes over their heads. And actually, different parts of the country will use that last piece in a different, will wrap that last piece in a different way. There's a choli that's a little blouse that goes under the sari. Then the dhoti is a garment worn by men. It's a white, a long 15-foot piece of white cloth that's wrapped around, and then a piece comes through the legs and tucked in the top, and it kind of looks like a oversized diaper. So, and here's where the word pajama comes from. It's pajama, technically, which are loose pants worn by men and women. The salwar kameez is also worn by men and women, and it is, the salwar are loose-fitting pants, and the kameez is a top that'll come down over, or, you know, kind of a long top. The women wear more decorative pieces with embroidery and things like that. The men are usually collarless, but buttons down the top. And in fact, this is very similar to that, although this is technically a kurta, but you'll see it's quite long. It's got you know, seams there, and then and not much collar. And again, this is made out of khadi material that I was talking about earlier. And in fact, I've listed kurta, the name right below that. The salwar kameez, going back to that, will typically, for women, they'll wear a chuni, which is a scarf that they'll wear like this, or, you know, like, I'm not very good at this, like that. But the good thing about it, with that and the sari, is that whenever you need to, you can cover your head. So, and these obviously can be very colorful and wonderful. And bangles, of course. I didn't bring any, but I have lots and lots of bangles, many colored, usually, often made of glass. You've probably seen those. And a bindi, oh, forgot to put it on the list. Anyway, a bindi is a little red spot that you put right in the middle of your forehead as a woman. Sometimes you could wear a little gem or, you know, jewel that kind of sticks there, but that adds a little color. Chappal is a sandal, and worn by men and women. And of course, shawl. We all know what shawls are. Well, that's where the word came from. But typically in India, it's a long piece of material, and you, instead of wearing a coat, that's what you wear. So it's you know, something to keep you warm. Okay. Want to do a little bit on art and culture, because there's so much wonderful art and culture there, and poetry and literature. You know, I'm really skimming the surface on so many of these things, but just to give you some highlights. The Ramayana and the Mahabharata are two epic poems that were written, or again, they weren't written for a long time. They were word of mouth for a long time. but they were also the best preserved and best known epics of India. The Ramayana is the story of Rama and Sita. Sita was absconded with by Ravana, and he allegedly took her to what might be thought of as Sri Lanka now. And he spent the rest of Rama spent the rest of the book trying to save her, basically. And the Mahabharata is dates to 400 BC, and that lays down a lot of the Hindu way of life. The Bhagavad Gita, which is the Song of God, that translates to the Song of God, is something you may have heard of before, and that's part of the Mahabharata. Going to a less serious thing, and that's the films. You've probably heard of or seen Bollywood Indian films, where there's a lot of dancing and color and a lot of music and all that. But that's what we call Bollywood, because it comes from Bombay, so we borrowed the B, got rid of the H, and they actually Bombay or Mumbai has the largest movie. They produce more movies in a year than any place else, more than the U.S. and more than China. And so it's India, U.S. and China in that order. So they really crank them out, but they're not all like the Bollywood movies that you think of. They do some serious, I guess, what critics would call good pieces. And Satyajit Ray, you may have heard of him, is quite a well-known director. Okay, the arts and crafts. It's fascinating stuff. The Hindu arts and crafts, they have little renditions, I guess, of gods and goddesses. There are thousands and thousands of Hindu gods, and they come in many shapes and sizes. This is Parvati, but made out of brass. But they make them in all kinds of, in wood, in stone, in pottery, in metal, and there are many, many manifestations. Here, in fact, is a painting of Ganesh. This is the elephant god, and he is supposed to be the remover of obstacles. So he's a good guy to have around. Okay, so my favorite, though, is the everyday, what I call the everyday art, or the functional art that is made with a purpose. And I've brought a few examples of these, and I'd love to pass them around if you'd like. I mean, children's toys. This great elephant with the wheels on the bottom. This one is a woman carrying a pot, but it's to, get the crud off the bottom of your feet. Well, sand your feet. Here's another one. It serves as a rattle, but it also has something to rub at the bottom. This guy is a beetle. Have you ever heard of beetle nut? It's something that Indians like to chew. It's that red stuff. Anyway, this chops the beetle nut. But look at this thing. Yeah, kind of. Yes. Look at that thing. It's fantastic. Every woman needs a toe rake. right? Toe ring.
That whole thing.
The thing on the bottom, you grab it, yeah, exactly, with your big toe. You grab it with your other toes. Okay, this is really cool. This is a cosmetic holder. So you unscrew the top here, okay? And then you have your, I don't know, your kohl, your eye stuff here, and your powder there, and your, I don't know, whatever.
Get these from India?
Oh, yeah. Nothing neat. And then, I know, isn't that something? So, and textiles, as I mentioned, are really big. In fact, one of the biggest exports from India is textiles. And these are blocks to put designs on textiles. So I brought a few of these. Yeah. And you know, everything is hand done there, or a lot of it's hand done. So you get a big piece of white cloth, and you put this in the die, and you plunk it down. You put it in the die and plunk it down, and then you end up with something like this. Okay. Or something like this. Okay, so just a couple more things I wanted to show you, and that is, let's see, painting. Talk about paintings and sculptures. I've already shown you one of the sculptures, example of sculptures, but this is not only Ganesh, the elephant god, but it also represents a miniature painting, and they are well known for their miniature paintings. And this is a collection of playing cards, and these are pretty old, which is why I have them in this case. But these are all playing cards, and if you look closely, you can see, you know, there might be 2 fish. That means it's a 2, I guess. But and there's 3 heads and whatnot. And of course, architecture is really a big part of what India is all about. And the most well-known, thank you, is the Taj. But there are many, many other beautiful buildings that have lasted for a very long time. A lot of temples, a lot of government buildings, things like that. And it's worth the visit just for that. And then just touching quickly on music and dance. A lot of interesting dance. Classical dance, 2 of the best known are what's called Bharatanatyam and Kathak. I can't do them, so please don't ask me to. But they're very precise about how you move your hands and how you move your feet. and I can't do any of that, but it takes a long time to learn how to be proficient at that, and they're really beautiful. If you ever get a chance, please take a look at them. The Indian instruments that you might have heard of are the sitar, the tanpura. The tanpura is the thing that the person in the pictures is using. It's a stringed instrument. The tabla, which is a drum that you beat on both sides. And the conch, which is a conch shell, but it's used to as a wind instrument. And of course, I don't want to belabor the point, but then there's the filmy, what they call the filmy music, which is from those Bollywood films. That crazy stuff. Okay, sports. Of course, they play the traditional sports like basketball and tennis and things like that. No American football, but they do play soccer. But their number one team, their number one sport rather, is field hockey, in that they have won several gold medals in the Olympics. And field hockey, though, is played by men. Here it's mostly played by women, but there it's played by men. So that's a men's sport, primarily. Polo, and I'm talking about the kind with the horse, right? Not water polo. That was actually, seems to have originated from Persia, but the modern version of polo comes from Manipur, which is a state in India. And then it was popularized by the British, but it's a big sport in India. And then soccer, I mentioned. Wrestling, they send a lot of athletes to the Olympics in wrestling. Cricket, they're huge fans of cricket and play a lot of cricket. Badminton, do you all know what badminton is? Great, because I play badminton. That's my favorite. Table tennis and kabaddi. Kabaddi is an Indian game. I don't know that they play it anyplace else. But it's a really pretty simple game, but it's a great game because you don't need anything but a piece of land. You put a large rectangle, probably the size of this room, okay, and you draw a line through the middle of it. You have 7 people on each side, and the object is for the raider, who's the guy on the one side, he has to go to the other side, touch the line, and get back without being tackled or stop breathing. Okay? Or I mean, or rather not stop breathing, but take a breath. So he can't take a breath, and he can't, get tackled by the other guys. He has to come back.
Right.
But this is the way you know whether they're breathing or not, and that is because they have to say kabaddi the entire time. So it's kabaddi, 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 kabaddi. Oh, so they have to say it, but actually, when you say it fast, it comes out like kabaddi, 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 kabaddi. You have to say that the entire time you're over there and come back. But it's a very simple game. Doesn't need any balls, any equipment, any shin guards or anything. But it's a great game.
Needs the oxygen tank.
Okay.
That's all.
Have I overstayed my welcome?
No, you're fine. Are there any questions? Sabrina?
Yes.
The red spot, the bindi,
Yeah.
you said that adds color. Is that simply decorative? There's no religious implication to that?
Well, typically, it's Hindus who use it, so in that sense. And it used to be that married women would wear it, but not so much anymore because it looks attractive, so other people wear it now. And now, married women will usually put a line of color in their heart to signify that they're married.
Is that still Hindu as well?
Yes, primarily. Yeah. Things get a little, kind of mushy.
Anyone else? Jessica?
Yes.
Do you know of any, or have you ever seen any, I didn't do a YouTube search, but any Bollywood movies that are child friendly?
Oh, well, first of all, typically there's no there may be a lot of allusion to,
But not necessarily.
but it's, yes, but there's, but it's most of the time it's very appropriate and kind of laughingly so sometimes, because it, you know, they go to a lot of trouble for symbolism, but there's nothing, you know, so there's no kissing and hugging and stuff like that. So, but yeah, there probably are some that are easier to understand, you know, because typically they're in Hindi or Marathi or, you know, some language. Sometimes they have subtitles, but most of the time you don't really have to understand what they're saying. Yes?
Hi, I was noticing a television program and it was a Hindu wedding, and the young lady who was about to get married was painted
In
on-
henna.
Yes.
Yes.
Each one of her fingers or something.
Yeah.
All the way up or
Yeah.
somewhere.
Both hands, typically.
both hands.
Yeah,
And by the time the wedding came around, was she able to wash it off or it stayed?
yeah. It does stay for a while, but it does eventually go away. I mean, it's, you know.
And just as a note, we had one of our instructors who used henna in a previous year without my permission or the parents' permission.
Oh, wow.
So we're not using henna or any similar, anything that's similar to tattoos. We're not doing anything like that with the children without getting their parents' consent. Face painting, fine. For the little ones in particular, even, you know, putting the red dot, you know, would be, it has to be able to be washed off right away. And we have to be careful with the ingredients to make sure that the children don't have any allergies or
Right.
anything that touches their skin. Okay.
I have a question / comment.
Okay.
The Jungle Book, isn't there a special connection there? I know Mowgli and the setting and everything is in
Yeah.
India, but
Yeah.
with the author,
Well, Rudyard
Did
Kipling
you-
wrote it, and yes, he grew up in India and lived in India. And so, yeah, that is a great story.
And who did Ricky Tikki Tavi? Was
that's
it
part,
Indian?
that's one of the stories.
That's my favorite.
Yeah, he wrote a lot of good books.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Anne?
Wasn't that Eartha Kitt? I'm sorry.
I think so.
No more questions? Okay, can we give her a round of applause? Thank you very much.
Bring all of the visuals, those were really
Yes.
But she can be presented in a lot of different ways, especially if you go into different parts of the country. It's really fascinating. Yeah. So, as were the South Indians, so some of their languages, parts of the country, but you know, in a more rural setting, it'll be less. There'll be less schooling because there's less opportunity for teachers, and but kids do go to school. They learn some English in school, not always a lot, but in some. There are they typically wear a uniform to school. I don't think it's all year. To tell you the truth, I'm not sure how that would shake out, but that's a good question.
Are there certain trades that children are expected to learn before a certain age?
I'm sorry?
Are there certain trades that children are expected to learn before a certain age?
Like
crochet or
I see.
learn how to make certain fabrics? Are there certain things that are expected of the children to learn how to do?
I'm not sure. Good question.